Welcome to the media briefing for the World Economic Forum Annual Meeting 2025. My name is Jan Zopf. I'm the head of media engagement at the World Economic Forum, and I'm delighted to be with you today. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our online audience and thank you for joining us. We are pleased to have journalists from across the globe here representing over 220 journalists from 28 countries. This year marks the 55th edition of the annual meeting, held under the theme Collaboration for the Intelligent Age. Today, we'll walk you through the key highlights of the program, introduce some of the notable participants, and share the anticipated outcomes of this year's event. There will be also an opportunity for media to ask questions during this session. I'm joined today by Børge Brende, President and CEO of the World Economic Forum, Mirek Duzek, Managing Board Member and Head of the Global Programming Group, and Gimwei Neo, Managing Board Member and Head of the Center for Nature and Climate. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. We're excited to share insights into what promises to be an outstanding annual meeting, and we look forward to a dynamic discussion. Now, let's begin. Børge, could you please share the key highlights of this year's annual meeting?
Thank you, Jan. I'll do that with pleasure, and thank you for joining us. It is our 55th annual meeting taking place in Davos, and it is happening against the most complicated geopolitical backdrop in generations. But still, in a fragmented and partly polarized world, there are still areas where we can collaborate. And with close to 3,000 participants from more than 130 countries, we have big opportunities and responsibilities to find those areas where there is a possibility to improve the state of the world. And we do have the right leaders to do so. We have 350 governmental leaders. We have more than 900 of the top CEOs and chairs of the large companies of the world, altogether 1,600 business people, 60 head of states and governments. But we know that also the same week as we are opening our annual meeting next week, there will be also an inauguration happening in the largest economy in the world, United States. So we are pleased that also the key leaders from the largest economies in the world, US, China, and the European Union will be with us in Davos. President Trump, in his first week, you know, he has joined twice physically in Davos. Before as president, he will on Thursday afternoon, he will join us digitally, online, live, in a dialogue with our participants. We think that will be a very special moment also to learn more what the new administration has of policy priorities. At the opening, it will be President Ursula von der Leyen opening the meeting also with a new mandate on behalf of European Union. And following then Madame von der Leyen will have also Vice Premier Ding from China, also member of the Standing Committee of the Politburo. So these leaders together with the 60 head of states and governments and the business leaders and also civil society and labor unions will make up the right mix to look also at the areas where we can move forward together. There are opportunities, and as I said initially, there is also responsibilities. If you look at some of the most pressing issues, for example, future pandemics, we cannot deal with that alone. We know that bird flu is now spreading in the US, and that can easily spread to Europe and China in a second. These are areas where I think there is enough national interest that is more and more now defining to also come together and collaborate on making the world better prepared for future pandemics than we were with COVID. Look at terrible wildfires now in Los Angeles. It shows that we are not protected against climate change, and we need to work together to also address the very pressing issues related to climate and loss of nature. Look at, for example, also cybercrime. $2 trillion are probably lost this year in cybercrime. There is enough interest among the G2, US and China. It should be at least, that is 45% of the global economy together, to find ways to avoid that this is spreading. What we will also see in Davos is that a variety of voices will be heard. We're very proud that the Global South, with President Ramaphosa from South Africa, will share his agenda for his and his country's G20 presidency. We'll also have the new voices. So, for example, Professor Yunus from Bangladesh. We'll have President Milei from Argentina that's going through very tough changes. The new foreign minister of Syria will share what are they planning, where is Syria heading moving forward. And on the foreign policy side, we will have the core and critical mass to really go deep on West Balkans, on Myanmar, on the Middle East, on the Horn of Africa, the forgotten conflict in Sudan that is also turning into, unfortunately, a proxy war. We'll have more than 40 foreign ministers there in Davos. And we also know that even if geopolitics look difficult, the global economy has held pretty well. Of course, we're not back at 4% trend growth as we saw for decades before COVID, but we do expect more than 3% growth this year economically, and also trade growing with 3%. And to discuss how we can even more revive growth, make growth more inclusive, being better prepared also for the changes that will come with the intelligent age, we have to all together, when it comes to finance minister, trade ministers, when it comes to governors of national banks and the economy minister, we have 90, more than 50 finance ministers, and looking then, having a hard look at how do we deal with the global debt that is higher than at any other time since the Second World War. How do we calibrate also the productivity gains that we can get from AI and Gen AI, with also the challenges that the new technologies are creating? How can we agree at least on some important traffic rules? So we are expecting a historic annual meeting in Davos with unparalleled participation at the highest level, both on the business side, government side, and we are ready to roll up our sleeves to make the best out of a situation where we're faced with many, many challenges. So that was a bit of a taste, Jan, on what to expect.
Thank you very much, Borge, for this overview. Mirek, you're the architect behind the program. Can you share some of the key program highlights?
Just to expand on the overall theme and the program of the annual meeting, Collaboration for the Intelligent Age, it is linked first and foremost to this deep sense of being on the cusp of a new era for the world economy, or at least in transition to a new situation for the world economy. And what we are tracking in the program are two big forces, two deep forces. On one hand, we are living through quite a unique time in terms of rapid technological advancement, exponential innovation. And on the other hand, we are tracking deep forces of fragmentation geopolitically, geoeconomically, and also in certain societies around the world. So it is really at the intersection of these two deep forces that, as Borge Brende mentioned, we will be gathering close to 3,000 leaders from around the world, from all walks of life, at this key time for the world economy. If I were to double-click a little bit on the concept of the intelligent age, why are we putting it on the agenda, why we think this is a game changer? It is not only one or two or three technologies that are exponentially going to market and transforming industry, economy, and society, but the whole point is that we are tracking that these are whole sets of technologies that are impacting industry, society, economy in that way. And what is also quite interesting and what we are trying to capture is the interlinkage, or the different points of convergence, the feedback loops that we are seeing among those technologies. And AI and Gen AI obviously is front and center of our agenda. It is this super technology, if you will, that interacts with a lot of the other technologies. But we are making a point that really with the notion of the intelligent age, this is a broader spectrum. And so you will see us in the program addressing, of course, AI, Gen AI, but also biotech, clean tech, health tech, space tech, sensing technologies, robotics, advanced manufacturing, advanced energy technologies, and I could go on. Just a little bit on the other force in terms of geopolitical, geoeconomic, and societal fragmentation and polarization. Borge Brende, I think I have already covered it, but just to say, of course, we are tracking research from the likes of IMF and the WTO. If we have protracted fragmentation in the international economic system, some of these institutions would put it at the threat of a loss of 7% of global GDP. We are also tracking the changing geography of supply chains, trade flows. We are tracking the deployment of different economic policy tools in different economies, including, for example, industrial policy. And we are also, for example, tracking in the program the increased influence of national security considerations in terms of the conduct of economic policy. Maybe just to add one more thing on the program, Borge, you've covered, we'll be focusing a lot on the economy, on growth as well. But of course, this is a holistic program, and so we'll be also putting a lot of emphasis on what it means for people, for societies, communities. The pillar is called Investing in People, particularly big focus on reskilling the future of jobs in this innovation-driven economy. My colleague Gimwei will cover our pillar on nature and climate.
Thank you, Mirek. Borge Brende has already hinted to the outstanding participation. What does the participation look like for business?
One of our strongest participations in terms of also business leaders, Borge Brende mentioned it, 1,600 business leaders overall. We're also, of course, tracking in terms of at what level are executives coming, and 900 is really something that for us over the past few years, this is one of the highest numbers we've had. I'm also pleased that we are seeing growth of executives coming also from emerging markets, so that proportion is growing. This year we're seeing particularly strong numbers, for example, from the Middle East, also from South Asia. We also have a lot of new executives coming, over 250 new business leaders that will be joining us at the annual meeting, underscoring the need for dialogue to be able to navigate uncertainty amid transformation. We also are pleased to see that there is more women leaders among the executives that are coming if we compare it to previous years. And finally, which is linked to the intelligent age, we are also seeing growth in terms of technology connected companies, not only unicorns and high-tech big startups, if you will, but also companies, incumbents that are very much part of this AI revolution.
Thank you, Mirek. You already mentioned AI, tech and innovation. Anything you would like to add on that?
It's a big part of the agenda. As I mentioned, among the host of technologies that we're tracking with the notion of the intelligent age, AI, and particularly Gen AI, of course, over the past few years, is a game changer. We have long-standing work that we do with ministers, business executives, innovators throughout the year, and so a lot of the work that we're doing will be on the agenda. Among them, of course, the latest on the large language models. We will be looking at use cases in industry. We will be, for example, looking at how it intersects with the energy systems. But one thing I would also like to mention is that, of course, we have long-standing work on the ethical use of technology. What are the risks in terms of deployment? And so we're quite clear-eyed about the opportunities of these technologies, particularly AI, but also quite clear-eyed about what are the risks and how important it is that we deploy those technologies with ethical, societal, and other considerations.
Thank you, Mirek. Gimwei, let's pick up on one of the key themes. What can we expect to see on climate, nature, and energy in Davos?
Thank you, Jan. And just building off what Boge and Mirek have presented, the theme for this year is collaboration in intelligent age. And there is no intelligent age if there is no healthy planet. And without collaboration, we will not be able to build and address the climate and nature emergency. I think we are all well aware of the emergency that we're in right now. Extreme weather events are being felt in all parts of the world. And last year was again a record year in terms of in terms of global temperatures, 1.54 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial age. And scientists are telling us that they're increasingly seeing signs that nature is losing its resilience to sequester carbon. Today, they absorb about 1/4 of global emissions. And if they lose that resilience from being a carbon sink to a carbon emitter, it will actually aggravate the crisis that we're in right now. We will be releasing this week a document, is a partnership with CDP, around how companies are progressing on their climate and nature agenda. And this analysis looks at companies that account for 2/3 of global market capitalization. And the stats will reveal that only about 10% are making meaningful and tangible action on the climate nature agenda. A lot of the focus of the annual meeting will thus be really on what are the issues and the challenges that actually is preventing this speed and scale in accelerating, in addressing the solutions that can help address the crisis. For example, in the energy transition, we need to look at the trilemma of how do we ensure that energy remains affordable, secure, it remains green, and that we can continue to support communities in accessing renewable energy at speed and scale. And a lot of the conversations will be to look at some of these obstacles, building that economic case. And given that the theme of this year is around the intelligent age, data, technologies can be a very key enabler to help bring down the costs and at the same time allow for deployment at a larger scale and faster speed. We will also take stock of many of the initiatives that are incubated and supported within the forum, whether this is the First Movers Coalition that looks at using the purchasing power of companies to procure green technologies, fostering, catalyzing more industrial clusters that are pushing for net zero transitions, how they have progressed over the last few years, and how we can continue to scale efforts to move forward. Finally, we want to also spotlight on success stories. So this year, for the first time on closing night, which is on Thursday night, we will have Gaia Awards that will acknowledge and honor institutions that are driving systems change for climate and nature. And this cuts across all categories of science, technology, business, partnerships, as well as leadership, so that we can continue to bring hope, as well as to show the possibilities of action towards addressing the climate crisis. So that's really the agenda for the week ahead.
Thank you very much. Time for questions now. So I think we have some questions live. I have a first one. I think, from Larissa Rehn, from Tagesanzeiger, from TAR Media. Do we have Larissa for the question?
Yes, thank you very much. I was wondering how both the conflicts in Ukraine and in the Middle East are going to be a topic of the sessions, that you already touched on this a little bit, but maybe you can expand a little bit, and who will be present from the concerned countries.
Thank you, Larissa. Borge.
Thank you. And we know that the war in Ukraine is unfortunately continuing with huge humanitarian consequences. We are very honored to welcome back to Davos President Zelensky. He will be with us on Tuesday with a special address. He will also take questions. And as we know, there's also a group of CEOs for Ukraine, because Ukraine will also in the future, when there is no war more, will also have to rebuild. The devastation is terrible, and the CEOs for Ukraine will also be part of that. It will also be interesting to see the political discussions around Ukraine in Davos. Is there a path for peace based also on important principles from the UN Charter? On the Middle East and North Africa situation, as I already mentioned, of course, we are all very interested in knowing the path for Syria. Where is the new leadership heading? Will it be inclusive leadership? How will Syria look in the future? Will Syrians that left be able to come back? Who will we rebuild Syria? We'll have, as I already mentioned, the Syrian foreign minister with us, but we also have the UN Special Envoy Geir Pedersen there that is now trying to find a path forward also for a new constitution and also politically for Syria. We will have President of Iraq with us. We'll have a Prime Minister of Qatar, Foreign Minister also of Saudi Arabia, Prince Faisal. We'll have also Foreign Minister of Jordan there. So there will be a hard look at the situation in Syria. But we should not forget also the terrible humanitarian situation in Gaza. So we'll have a session on also with Sigrid Kaag, that is the Secretary General's Special Envoy for Gaza. What is the path forward? How to also support all the Palestinians that are suffering so much in Gaza today. And in that respect, also, is there a path for future peace? We'll have then the Israeli President Herzog and the Palestinian Prime Minister Mustafa there. So we'll have a rich discussion on the Middle East. It's also interesting that we will have the Special Envoy, UN Special Envoy for Yemen there. Yemen is a wild card in this, and we know that we're all also overall concerned about the potential escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. We were very close between Israel and Iran, and I don't think we're out of the woods yet. So it will be interesting with the strong Israeli delegation there, but we also will have Vice President Javad Zarif of Iran with us in Davos. So it should be possibilities for dialogues, and hopefully we can also find a path forward for peace and reconciliation, and also address humanitarian sufferings.
Thank you, Borge. I have another question from you, from Jana Simalak from the New York Times. She's not able to go live, but I'm reading out the question. So what can gatherings like Davos accomplish in a world that is increasingly skeptical of the free flow of trade and ideas?
So as I mentioned in my introduction, even in a polarized, fragmented world where more and more countries are sticking to purely their national interests, there are areas there is so strong interest in collaborating because it really makes sense. So we have to identify that. We also have to bear in mind that also in the past, for example, during Trump's first period as president, global trade grew, investments grew, economy grew. So we will, of course, face a different trade landscape than before, where we might see more mega regional trade agreements, bilateral trade agreements, but trade should continue to flow. What we have to avoid is a fragmentation that leads to a decoupling, and that's the numbers that also Mirek mentioned previously from the Bretton Woods, saying that total decoupling can lead to 7, 8, 9%, then a contraction of the global economy. That is like a depression. So that, of course, has to be avoided, and we see no indications for that at all. But new trade agreements, for example, we saw President Ursula von der Leyen made a deal with Mercosur. Together, EU and Mercosur is almost close to 30% of the global GDP. So that will be a very powerful trade agreement. It's different from the past. But we should also be aware that we have also a lot of agreements around the WTO today. Even if it's hard to make new multilateral deals, 70% of global trade happens under the auspices of the current WTO agreements. I think, though, in the future, where we will see a re-globalization, it's important to make sure that also global trade and investments is also supporting everyone in society, that wealth has to trickle down. And this inclusiveness has been an area where we definitely could have done better and will have to do better in the future.
Thank you, Børge. We have a live question from Jose Manuel Sanz Mingote from EFE. Do we have Jose Manuel? Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. You have already described the participation this year, but I would like to know, if possible, what percentage of participants will come from the so-called Global South. Is it higher or lower than in previous years? And is there a risk that Davos will become a purely Western forum? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Mirek, on the Global South.
No, I mentioned it a little bit when I talked about the business participation, where we are seeing an increase overall in terms of the participation of business leaders from, let's say, markets that are outside North America, Europe. The classification is complicated. But what is important is that it is a very inclusive meeting, and for that we see on the business numbers we are actually growing the number of participants from those markets. When it comes to public figures or governmental leaders, if you will, we are almost at parity. So if we look at those numbers among the governmental leaders, Børge mentioned about 350 overall, it's roughly parity. And is also in terms of how they are involved in the program overall. We have a number of leaders, some of those that have not been mentioned, for example, the Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, is appearing in the program with a very strong message, also chairing ASEAN. We have a number of Latin American leaders, from Southeast Asia. So overall, the global nature, the inclusive nature in terms of different geographies is stronger even this year if we compare it to past years.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I just would like to add to what Mirek said. For the World Economic Forum as a neutral and impartial platform, it's so important that we're also reflecting the global reality. As Mirek also underlined, we have even stronger representation now from business and political leaders from the Global South than ever before. And this is reflecting also the reality out there. And when Professor Klaus Schwab, our founder and chairman, started the forum 55 years ago. This was also core of the thinking. And if you look at the World Economic Forum today, what I think, of course, I'm biased, but what I think is one of the key strengths of this organization is that we are multi-stakeholder, and we also are not a transatlantic organization. We have strong North American footprint and European, but we are as African, Latin American, Asian as we are European. And that means that that important dialogue can happen on our platform. A lot of our other organizations are neither neutral or impartial, and they are not global as the way we are at the forum. And that comes with a big responsibility to also build dialogue and increased understanding.
Thank you. We have another live question. So Kong Guan from Taixin Media. Do we have you live? Yes, please. Your question.
Thank you. I have a question on how will this year's forum promote discussions on artificial intelligence governance and development models? Thank you.
Merrick.
I covered it a little bit, but again, AI will be front and center of the agenda, specifically on governments, on governance. There will be opportunities for dialogue in terms of comparing notes. This is an evolving landscape, as we all know. Different governments have different approaches to how they look at AI governance. It's very important that there is dialogue across those different geographies so that they can have lessons learned, exchange views on what's working, what's not working. Of course, it's also very important that we take a very multi-stakeholder view of how AI should be governed. I mentioned, of course, the ongoing work we have also around safety, around ethical use. It's very important that in addition to governmental entities, of course, business is part of the equation, but also civil society actors. So you will see us also putting those dialogues together. What is also important in terms of AI governance is, and Borge just talked about the inclusion globally. How do we make sure that the AI revolution that we're all living through actually closes the disparities among nations in terms of technological and economic competitiveness rather than doing the opposite? And so we have a very important initiative that is also going to be very much front and center in the program, really looking at particularly emerging markets, and particularly through the lens of regional collaboration. How can we ensure broad-based agency around not only the deployment, but also development of these transformative technologies in economy? And then finally, on this front, of course, we are also tracking the important efforts of, for example, the UN Secretary General, the important success that he achieved in September with the establishment of that scientific body that is this first installment, if you will, in terms of international collaboration around AI, specifically, of course, more to come, but this was already an important milestone. And then, of course, we are also aware, for example, of the upcoming AI summit that France will host, where there will be a lot of focus on the intersection between AI governance and AI competitiveness.
Thank you, Merrick. I have a question here from AP, Jamie Keaton. Do we have Jamie? Yes. Hi, Jamie. Your question.
Hi, Jan. Thank you, and hello, everyone. Happy New Year. You did touch on some of this already, but I'd just like to follow up on it. As you know, liberal democracy, humanitarian aid, and the fight against climate change all seem to be kind of losing ground at the moment. What can the forum do about that exactly? And if I could just slide in another one, you mentioned that President Trump is going to be coming. Do you expect any other participants from his administration? Thanks.
Thank you. First part.
Yeah,
to you,
perhaps I can take the first part of the question, and then I'll have Borge take the second part. There will be multiple conversations that will be organized around the topics of humanitarian aid, climate, nature, energy. And in the run-up to the annual meeting this week, as well as the week before, we are actually launching a whole series of reports around the risks of inaction, as well as the opportunities, the economic case, the business case for the energy transition journey, how companies can seize opportunities by investing into nature-positive outcomes. And so these reports will inform the conversations going into Davos. And at Davos, there will be multiple dialogues that will be really focused around tangible action that companies, governments can take to support the net zero nature-positive transition pathways. And more importantly, how they can work together to build partnerships that can enable and empower the action in a faster and a much more skilled manner.
Thank you, Gyumi. I might add to the second part, because we also received one from Al Jazeera, from Laura Gerler. She said, will any members of the new US administration be attending the forum in Davos? And if so, who? So I'm adding that to Jamie's question before. Borge.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that question. We are very pleased that President Trump will join us, as I said, in his first week as president, live in Davos and in dialogue with CEOs also. We have been told that the administration wants a broad footprint towards the end of our meeting. I'm then talking about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. As we know, the inauguration happens on Monday, the 20th, and the Senate will probably start the process of then also clearing new secretaries, confirming new secretaries Monday afternoon. So towards the end, we do expect even additional high level of representation from the Trump administration. So we're very pleased by that, because we know that there is a lot of interest, of course, among our participants, also the rest of the world, to decipher and understand the policies of the new administration. So it will be a very interesting week.
Thank you, Borge. I have another question from AFP, Agence France Presse, Sophie Estienne. Do we have
Yes,
Sophie
I'm here.
Estienne with
Hi.
us? Hi, Sophie. Thank you.
So one question, if I may. WEF has always been a synonym from global multilateralism, free trade. So how concerned are you with the state of both of them, considering Trump's return to power and the rise of protectionism a bit everywhere in the world? And a second one, if I may, I mean, you mentioned people from US administration. What about Elon Musk? Have you heard about him? Any chance he may be there?
Thank you, Sophie. Back to you, Borge.
No, thank you. It is a reality that we are in the middle of two orders. We had one order post-Cold War, and then now it's an unruly time, because we don't exactly know what the new order will be. But we do know it's going to be more multipolar than in the past, but we do also hope that there will be some multipolarity with some multilateralism. We need rules and regulations, but they might be different from the past. But if you look at it with experience we had with Trump first administration, as I already mentioned, trade grew, investments grew. But there is a different landscape where we might see more tariffs. We might see also more nearshoring, friendshoring, so the supply chains will change. But as long as we see trade growth and also global growth, then you can look at it like glass half empty or half full. So it will be very interesting, of course, also then to follow. On the US side, we're also expecting governors from the US with us in Davos and other political leaders. And when it comes to Elon Musk, we don't know. He is, of course, also welcome with Donald Trump when he hopefully comes physically also at our next annual meeting.
Thank you, Borge. Thank you to the media. Thank you for the panelists today for joining us. There will be another briefing tomorrow. We're going to launch the Global Risk Report, so you want to tune in to that tomorrow. You can contact us if you need any information on that. Thanks for everybody watching online. We're going to look forward. We're looking forward welcoming you in Davos. Thank you very much.